is derived more from inference than from actual facts that you can find in black and white print. The Cummings family that settled on the farm, Abraham's group, gets together every 3 years for a reunion. My first Cummings reunion was in 2000. And I had started working on the family tree about a year before and had published a very small printout. And once I showed an interest in doing the family history, other members from the Michigan group encouraged me to dig deeper and to document as much of the history as I can. For the 2003 reunion, I published a book, which is 585 pages long, on the family of Abraham and Hannah Cummings. One of the things I'm most proud about in that book is that I think it is the most thorough listing of the descendants from Abraham and Hannah. In 2000, several family members had expressed an interest in me in finding out if Abraham was the son of a John Cummings and Susan Lett. John Cummings and Susan Lett had settled in Perry County, Ohio in the early 1830s or 40s and are found there in the 1850 and 1860 census. Susan died in Mecosta County, Michigan in the 1860s, and John died in the 1870s, and both are buried in the Wheatland Cemetery in Mecosta County. So since several cousins had pointed me in that direction and had stated that John and Susan's other family members of theirs were related to the group known as the Old Settlers, that I might find more information in that direction. Upon doing more research, and I went up to Michigan to do more research in the field, and while I was there, the family members up there arranged for me to meet with other cousins, some that were descendants of Abraham's and some that were descendants from the Old Settlers, and brought me all the documentation that they could find or had on hand, and pointed me in directions to look for other information. Kenny Todd is one of the ones that I met in Mecosta County at this time, and he had brought copies of Millie Pointer's Bible. Millie would have been Abraham's sister, and she married Daniel Pointer, and she had a family Bible. And in that family Bible, well, difficult to read, it appears that Abraham's birth is recorded in the Bible. The Bible was published long after Abraham's birth. It was published in the 1870s, I believe, so it would have been recorded much afterwards. But finding Abraham's birth record in her Bible really points to him being a relative of hers, if not a brother, then a most likely relative. One of the other interesting things, one of the family members had Abraham's wife, Hannah Peterman's tintype collection. And in that tintype collection is a photograph, a tintype of Millie and Daniel Pointer's adopted son, Aaron Morgan, and his wife, who I believe was also a Lett, and one of their children.
I'm on page 329 of the book that you've written, The Family of Abraham Cummings and Hannah Peterman, and it says here, the possible ancestors of Abraham Cummings, the family secret. Can you say a little bit about the title of the chapter and what might be the secret?
Well, the groups, there are two groups of Cummings in Mecosta County. And there's the part that are African American that are related to and are associated with the Old Settlers. And then there's the family of Abraham and Hannah. And the two groups have not had a lot of interaction in the years past. At the reunion, several of the people had said that they thought that Abraham might have been a mulatto. At the time that they pointed it out to me, they were very careful to make sure nobody overheard them telling me this and asking me to look further into the history. So it was obviously something that had been talked about, but was not expressed out in a more pronounced manner. they were curious about their history and they want to know more about it and are excited to find out all of the aspects of it. At the same time, the two communities have not been that actively together. So,
Does the book have an impact on that? Is there more, is there a willingness to work more closely together to tease out?
I don't know how, since I live in Virginia, I don't know how much the two communities get together. I know that Kenny Todd and some of the other family members have gotten together at times and stuff. I know that I've heard no negative comments from my discussion of Abraham's parentage in the book. And so at the same time, I haven't heard really anything positive or negative. Sometimes I like to say that the silence speaks volumes, that such a, representation such of the facts and the probable most likelihood that Abraham is the son of John and Susan Lett. If people had disagreed with it, they surely would have spoken up to me. I've been welcome everywhere I go. I've been thanked tremendously for bringing the entire family history to publication and documenting as much as I can. They've been very excited about it. They've been very supportive of it. And the reunion community even assisted and gave me a check to help defray expenses on publishing the book. So, at the 2003 reunion, when I brought the book to the reunion, I published 100 copies. I sold 76 copies at the reunion, which is a large number for a genealogy book at one sitting, at one reunion. So I sold them at cost, and the book I sold it for $75. So, and that basically covered my costs.
What would anyone at this point in time have to risk by having African heritage?
Well, at this time, I don't think that there's as much to risk as there was in the past. But there are a lot of people in the community that have lived in that community for such a long time, and some of them have experienced some name calling and stuff, and so until recently, I don't think this would have been as welcomed as it is at this point in time. I don't know if this has anything, this is a little more about me. As I was growing up in Virginia, I can look back now and see some things. I think you were kind of intimating about it. Virginia having closed down a lot of its schools in the 1960s because of desegregation and stuff. I was not aware of it at the time. I look back at some things now and things make more sense to me. My classes were always integrated, but I was also in a suburb of Washington, D.C., which a lot of Virginians do not consider a part of Virginia. It's a much more liberal area than conservative Virginia. I lived for 10 years in Virginia Beach and Norfolk and worked in that community. And I was very surprised at how distant the two communities are down there, and that a lot of those kids down there grew up with the closures of the schools and stuff. So
your high school was integrated?
My high school was integrated. My elementary school was integrated. And I had quite a few contacts with African Americans that to me was no big deal. My dad has pointed out several things. My Cub Scout leader was African American, and my dad had made comments to some of the family back home that in the community we live, their next door neighbors put up no trespassing signs, only on the property line facing the African American neighbors. Again, it wasn't something that I was aware of, but in hindsight, I can see that. And I remember second grade, there was a girl named Margot Robinson that was African American who was teased quite a bit, and I used to stick up for her just, And I didn't think anything about it at the time. But I also saw it in the teacher. If Margot did not bring her homework to school, the teacher would take her to the front of the class and beat her with the yardstick. And no other kids in the class got that. And it didn't make sense to me until later why this was happening. And that was second grade. But after that, that I really don't know much about that. The school was predominantly white, but there was a very large African American community. My senior high school, the homecoming queen was African American. The class president was African American. The class president happened to be the son of my Cub Scout leader, so I knew him. And I understand that he went on to be a lawyer and a prosecutor in New York City. So
in Michigan,
I wanted to say one other thing about that. My dad is a very nice man. He's great with people and everything, but he is not very good with tools. And one of the girls in the grade with me was the daughter of a Lieutenant Colonel Gregg who lived down the block from us. He had 2 daughters, and he took us down to get tadpoles in the pond down behind his house and stuff. And he was African American, and I really hadn't thought anything about this till many years later. He didn't have any sons, and he had the 2 daughters, and their house sat at the bottom of the best sledding hill for when it snowed. And one time I crashed at the bottom of the hill, and they bundled me up and took me in the house, gave me hot chocolate, warmed me up. And I would take my bicycles or wagons to him to have them fixed because he could fix them. And my dad was not always the best one to give those to. And when that day that I had crashed my sled and taken in, he pinned on me the oak leaf clusters from when he was promoted. In the 1970s, the Army was integrating more and more. And that gentleman became one of the first 6 African American generals in the Army. And I've always looked back at that as a source of pride. And I still have his oak leaf clusters and everything, General Gregg. So, and the other thing that I found interesting was that my dad, we were very active in St. Margaret's Church in Woodbridge. And there were a few African American families in the group, but not many. But my dad was a senior warden of the church. When my parents were divorced, my mother's second husband happened to be the secretary treasurer at the time. And it became funny because I was president of the youth group and his daughter was the vice president of the youth group. It all became a family affair. But the junior warden of the church was Colin Powell. And so our families had quite a bit dealing with the Powell family.
Is this Haley?
Yes, yes. And Michael Powell was several years younger than me, and kids of the same age played together, so I never really hung out much with Michael. I knew who he was, but my group was a little bit older than his.
Would you visit Idaho? Would that life be allowed?
Every 3 years we would go back to visit Idaho. Dad would take a month off and we would drive cross country. And there's kind of a funny saying that the Mosher men never take the same road twice. So by the time we went back in the 70s, we went through Toronto and came back through Las Vegas, then New Orleans. And we got to see quite a bit of the country as we went.
Would you see, so you have cousins in Idaho?
Oh yes, yes, most of the family